podcast is brought to you by Steel Core Industrial Construction and Welding Supply. If you can weld it, drill it, cut it, or bolt it, Steel Core has it. The largest selection of nuts, bolts, welding supplies, and construction equipment in the southern United States, Steel Core has what you need to keep your job going. With more than $4 million in on-hand inventory ready to deliver to your site today, serving North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and the rest of the country. Call 864-764-1599. That's right, call Steel Core today, 864-764-1599. And we're live. Gentlemen, thank you guys for being here. I know it's been a little bit of a challenge to get us here, but appreciate you guys working the schedules out to be here. You all are with Crowder Construction, without a doubt, one of the most well-known construction and fabrication companies in the Carolinas, if not in the country. I mean, y'all have built a wonderful name for yourself in the world. I don't think I could go talk to anybody anywhere. They wouldn't know who Crowder was if they're in the construction and, the fabrication business. But with us today, I want to do some introductions. We have Mr. Tommy Rowart. You are Business Development Manager for Crowder. Barry Fletcher, you are Director of Hydro.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Jason King, you are a fabricator. So we've got three great individuals to give us three different points of views of the construction world. I love that. So this is the American Built podcast. We talk about American manufacturing, American fabrication, American entrepreneurship. I love that Crowder touches all of those, right? Yes, you guys are helping support manufacturing by building facilities. You're producing products that are helping build this country that we live in.
Yes, sir.
It's a wonderful thing. So, real quick, we'll kind of tell the audience a little bit about Crowder. Crowder is a 76-year-old company, founded in 1947 by O.P. and W.T. Crowder. Now, they were cousins, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How does one or two build a company that has become as successful as Crowder?
Well, if you know Otis and Bill, you know they care about the people. And that's the number one thing they talk about. I don't care what time of day it is,
yes, sir.
what day of the week it is. When you talk to them, they bring up the people. Without the people, we would be nothing. We would not have the company we have today. And they have really instilled that into the employees at Crowder. And they care a lot. You're not a number, you're a person. They know you, they know your family, they know your kids. And even when you have a birthday or Christmas or the holidays, they will pick up the phone and they will call you and ask you how you're doing. Do you need anything? I mean, they treat you like a person, not just like a number.
Yeah.
And that is what has brought them to the success they have today.
I think that's very evident with the fact that you've got such a long tenure of employees.
Yes, sir.
I was telling you at lunch, I think Crowder is probably one of the very few fabrication shops I can go into and see the same face year out and year in. Much less, there's a lot of places, guys, their turnover rate's weekly, right, if not daily.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know. I can probably count on one hand the amount of different faces I've seen in 11 years working with y'all.
And that's one thing about Crowder, too. I know a lot of people struggling, even Crowder struggles, but with the economy the way it is now, the workforce, and that's one thing that when people ask us, what can Crowder bring to the table, and that's what we tell them, the people, the long-term relationships, the people that we have that's worked with us for 15-plus years. And these guys, they work together. They know how each other works. They've been crews together for 15, 20 years. So I think that's what makes a big difference with Crowder is the people, and the people that's been with Crowder for the 15-plus years.
Yeah.
I tell you a couple of, not to interrupt, but I tell you a couple of, one story and one statement. Every year, Bill Crowder calls you on your anniversary. Every year.
Wow.
I'm 24 years in. You just pick one. 21st year anniversary. My March 14th, he calls me.
Get out of here. That's impressive.
You will get a call from him. And The story to go along with that is, like I said, I've been with them 24 years. Started as a helper. I was 18 years old. Didn't know anything about the industry. And I'd only been working at the original shop maybe less than 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And in walks, what I didn't know was Bill Crowder.
Yeah.
And somebody's like, that's Bill Crowder, that's the owner, just letting you know, give you a heads up. And I just thought, he'd come in, and I've worked a few places and people come in and they leave. No, he came in, he comes to every individual.
Wow.
He shakes your hand. That first 6 months, he came over, he shook my hand, and how you doing? I'm Bill Crowder. I introduced myself, and he said, it's good to have you on board, How long you been? I've been here 6 months. It's good. What are you doing? I was like, just grinding. I was just working, And he's like, what you working on? What job's it for? Sir, I don't know. I'm not sure. He said, let me tell you a story. And he tells me this elaborate story about this gentleman that worked at a factory his whole life. Factory takes new ownership. Guy comes in, he's walking around, he's looking at everybody, talks to this gentleman. He says, what are you doing? He says, I drill these holes. That's what I do. He said, what's that hole for? I don't know. I just drill it. And lo and behold, they get to the bottom of the issue, and there's no use for this hole. And I'm thinking in my mind, I was like, is he saying there's no use for me to work here?
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, I tell you this to tell you, know what you're doing so that you can take pride in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
That's
I was an
exactly
18-year-old kid. I'm, 43 now, and I'll never forget that. I've told people that come to work, anybody who comes to work, I've shared that story, and I'm like, he really, it makes you think.
Yeah.
He wants you to know if you take pride in what you're doing, people are gonna, and just like you mentioned earlier, though, that was Crowder's slogan for several years. We had shirts. It was "Building America" and proud of it.
Really?
That was our
I
slogan.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to kind of piggyback on what you was talking about, caring about what you do. I tell all these people that come to work for us and they work in our warehouse, I say, do you know what these bolts, obviously we do a lot of different things, but mostly our bolting is a big part of our business. I said, do you know what these bolts go into? Oh, it's just a bolt. I said, no, it's not just a bolt. I said, do you know what that speck on that paper means? No, I said, we're fixing to teach you because you need to know. Because if you send the wrong spec just because you don't feel like reading the paperwork or you don't care, I said, people, these are holding buildings together. These holding bridges together. They're holding columns up in the air. So people could die if you sub the wrong part and it don't get caught. I said, it matters what you're doing. You might think you're just putting parts in a box, but you're not. Right. You've got to take pride in what you do. It doesn't matter what you do.
Well, some of your boats is holding back a lot of lake systems around here too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
A lot of water.
Yeah,
No pressure, Brandon.
No, not at all.
No pressure whatsoever.
But you talking about, Jason talked about pride. You talked about pride and having pride in what you do. And I came with Crowder about 10 years ago. And I'll tell you, I'm not saying it just because I'm with the company, but I've seen a lot of pride in the work, even out in the field and on the construction side. These guys want it to be the best it can be. Want it to look the best it can be. The quality is always there. And the guys in the shop just wanting to be the best they can be. They don't want that weld to look like somebody stuck some bubble gum on it. They want it to be as slick and as good as it can be and penetrate just like it's supposed to be.
Right.
And when one of them don't quite look good as the other, they usually ride one another, but they are very full of pride of what they do when it leaves that shop. And I know that on the construction side, when they put up a structure, they want it to be right. They don't want nothing going sideways, nothing crazy,
Craftsmanship is becoming, in my opinion, a lost care. These boys and ladies, I guess, these gentlemen are craftsmen. And when you lose sight of the fact of what you're building is a craft, and you're just, that's why I don't like the production line welders, just the straight trigger pullers, because all they're doing, I'm not saying I don't like them, that's a bad way of putting that, but when you take someone out of a fabrication shop and you put them on a production line where they're just welding the same part and they're pulling a trigger, that they lose their sense of who they are as a craftsman, and it just becomes a job.
Well, also too, out in the field, you can see your progress every day
Yeah.
of what you're doing. You know, and that's like I've been with Crowder 17 years, and I've been in this construction business 40 plus years. And when I graduated from school and started taking welding and stuff, I took welding at Daniel Morgan and finished it out in Spartanburg Tech. But I would always ask questions. Hey, what does this plant do? What does this machine do? What is it going to do at the end of the day? What is it going to produce? That way you understand what you're doing and you see the progress daily, and you can step back and be very proud of what you helped build. You know,
Absolutely.
no one person can do anything by themselves. It takes a team.
Right. Speaking of the team, this as soon as we were talking about tenure, this thought went in my head about job profitability and job execution. Would you agree with my thought that by having a group of guys that have been together for so long, they know each other's moves, they know how to work together, does that not increase the efficiency of that job?
No doubt.
And then for your customer, as far as quality, timeliness, but on y'all's end, that's got to improve billable, your quoted billable hours, beating those.
Well, and the most important thing is go ahead and, before the job starts, lay the expectations out on the table. Show the guys what you're working with, what your budget is, what the timeline is. Give them the tools they need to be successful. And they will take care. The guys that spend together 10, 15 plus years, they will take their knowledge because they know how you think. They know exactly how you work. They know what your next step's going to be.
Yep.
So if you give them the tools they need, the guidelines, the schedules, the tools of the trade, they're going to make it successful.
Yeah. It has to work a lot better.
It does.
I would think from a value standpoint to a customer that tenure of employee in this line of work has got to be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, and some of the setbacks are, a lot of companies have budgets, and a lot of companies have guidelines that they have to stay within. So that's some of the stuff you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis is you got to know how your crews work, what crews can do the best quality job and the fastest work. Because when a client comes to you and say, hey, this is the budget I have, we got to stay in this budget, then you got to set it up for success. And you got to know what crew mix and what crews you got to put on that work to make it happen to help the client stay within that budget.
And that helps, but by knowing what you got to work with, by knowing your crews. Yep.
Knowing your crews.
You can't do that if you got a high turnover. No. So I don't know. I thought that was, of all the things I've seen y'all do and been involved with y'all for a long time now, the fact that you keep people has got to be the most impressive. Now, I've seen some killer stuff come out of that shop, but seeing the same faces in this line of work is more impressive to me than anything you've ever built. So, I mean, I know y'all have great pride in that, and you should. Yes. You sure should.
Barry, we start with Jason. Jason, what do you want to just kind of elaborate on some of our capabilities in the shop, and then Barry can say what, out in the field, out in the construction side, what some of the capabilities we can do out there?
Well, I mean, as far as the shop goes, we have done in the past, we've done, we've done a lot of duct work. So we're pretty much, we can handle anything as far as plate. We can break, we can shear, full sheets up to a half-inch thick, carbon, stainless. We've got a burn table that can handle, up to 2-inch thick material. We do a lot of all of our in-house, our burning and things like that. As far as welding, I've personally been involved in everything from copper nickel to Hastelloy, 2209, to standard A36, A57, that kind of, carbon steel and things. We've got let's see, we've done several stacks. We've done, like I said, a lot of duct work. We've done several pretty large scale prefab on pipe in the past. And I also think too that for everything that the shop does, and Barry can back me up, the for our division, the field, we're very complementary.
Yes.
We help each other. We solve problems together. I'm sure, and Barry remembers too. I mean, there's been at least 3 to 4 times I can think of, and I've been involved out in the field too with issues that clients would have come up with other companies, and Crowder was kind of a lifeline.
Yes.
We were already an example on the job site with what we were doing, contracted to do for them. That I know for a fact I can count 3 to 4 pretty major projects that the client reached out to Crowder and said, we're having some pretty big issues here. Can you kind of jump in and really help us out with that? And that goes back to like you're talking about. You've got the kind of people in house at the shop and out in our division's field that were like, not only can we handle our load, but we'll also help you out with yours.
What field divisions does Crowder have? I know you've got hydro,
Right.
you've got roads, bridges, correct?
Yes, we do bridges. We also have we do paper mills, chemical, structural, millwright. We dabble into a lot of the RNG projects now, renewable gas. We do hydro turbines. We do gas turbines. So whatever the customer wants or needs, we've got enough experience and knowledge with our team that we could help them. If we can't, we do have connections that can.
Looking at a lot of lithium storage,
Lithium
facilities.
storage and batteries, but yeah, and like Jason was saying, we have 52,000 square feet of fabrication shop, right?
I believe it is 52.
And a lot of if you go by one of these hydro stations, either we've done some work on the hydro stations or we've built the gates in-house for the hydro station.
Walk me through that process, because I could only imagine trying to estimate that job,
Right.
all the pieces and puzzles of that, much less build it and then install it.
Well, people turn on a light bulb, they don't understand how that light bulb's coming on.
You're right.
But these power generation companies, it takes a lot to make that happen. And I tell you, Barry knows how to make it happen. So if anybody's out there listening, and you turn that light bulb on, Barry probably had a little bit to do with it.
Yeah, and I tell you, we've had a lot of good partnership, and partnership's a good thing. We built relationship with these power companies, and these power companies know we might have disagreements, but at the end of the day, it's how you handle the disagreements. When you can sit down, you can talk through it, have a 30-minute meeting, and everybody walk away happy. So that's where the relationships are built. You might be on the out sometime with these guys, but they know at the end of the day they can pick up the phone and call you, and you're going to do everything you can to make it happen for them. But on the coal plants, a lot of people seeing changes in the coal plants. They seeing a lot of this natural gas coming in with these gas-fired turbines. But one thing about it is what really got me interested in hydro. At a young age, I got to get with a group of guys that did a lot of work on hydros. So I fell in with them, and we all became friends. And hydros just really was. You look at hydros, nothing has really evolved over the years with hydros. A lot of these plants are 100+ years old, and the technology that they had back then, we've got more technology than they had to build this stuff back in, and just the measurements and the preciseness of these turbines is just unreal. And the quality and the workmanship the people really cared about back 100+ years ago.
Right.
And to be involved in that kind of historic situation with Duke and Dominion and Alabama and Southern companies, and it's just amazing how strong water is and how efficient these units are.
Have you been inside some facilities that still have steel rivets holding back water?
Oh, rivets. It has open bus systems on the electrical side. We actually found a photo of a guy that was down around Chester County. Um, it was a black and white photo. He had a lunchbox, an old timey lunchbox, and a set of overalls, and it was dated back 1914, or it was, and it said my first job.
Wow. How about that?
Yeah.
That's wild,
And it was behind a piece of plywood
Yeah.
that the main power system come in out of one of these plants that we were going in and demoing and doing upgrades on.
I don't think people realize that when they see like those round-headed rivets, steel rivets, that they were heating those rivets and sledgehammering them in
Right.
there.
And
then
that's
it stood the test of time.
and still,
Yeah.
100 plus, and there's only a few companies in the United States and the world that actually come in and do that process, because we've actually, Historical Society, when they got involved with all the hydro systems, they wanted to keep it as much to
Really?
original as possible.
I didn't know this.
Yes. So once we go into one of these hydro stations, the scope of work comes out and said, hey, we want to keep the rivets.
Wow.
So you have to get with a few companies that do this and replace the rivets. Even the design and handrail systems and stuff. Jason and his guys and Tommy in the shop have actually fabricated cannonballs with claws and stuff on them that we could not find, that we had to put back because of the Historical Society.
Really?
Yeah. So it's, not only do we do steel work, pipe, but we do custom work too.
Right,
So they've had to do a lot of that over
Yeah.
the years,
I guess I just would have assumed that those old rivets, when they would need to replace, they were going to be replaced with bolts.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Probably
Yep.
the
Yeah.
steel core.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee you everything that holds the seals and the trunnion bearings on these gates, the bolts came from steel core.
No, I love it. No, I love it. That's right. That's right. That's what I love about this business is
Yep.
we just don't. There's so many different parts and pieces to this world that we live in that people don't realize, they take for granted. I was telling my little boy, I said, and he said, "What do you do?" I said, "Man, we supply parts that hold the world together." He said, "Oh, no." I said, "Man, you can't walk through that door without screws and bolts."
Yeah.
The world is welded and bolted together.
Some kind of fastener.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I joke and they say, we're on the brink of World War III. I said, ain't much I can do about that. I said, but when they rebuild it,
Yep.
they're going to weld it and bolt it back together.
That's right.
But I know that there's a lot of certifications that have to go involved with what y'all do. What does the certification process look like for like new hires for y'all? When you do have to bring in a new hire, that has to be a pretty lengthy process to go through from the time you hire a new person. Are they required to go and get all the weld tests? Are they required to have certain certifications to work for you all?
Well, it depends on if they're coming in the shop, depending on what they're coming in as. If they want to weld, they'll have to, of course, do a drug test to start with, and then they'll have to do a weld test, and that's a lot on this, depending on if it's plate test, structural test, or pipe test. And there's certain, Jason usually I give them to Jason when I get through with them, and he gives them the test, and then they'll bend it and break it and cut it, and if it meets the spec or whatever he's got to do to it, and then they'll hire them.
Are you finding it difficult in today's job market or employee market to find quality skilled labor?
Very difficult.
What are some things that you all are doing to try to combat that?
Well, on the field side, the guys that are the project managers that are over the jobs, we want to be face to face with these guys. We want to talk to them, ask them questions, get a background on them, see what kind of knowledge level they have coming in. It's just like a guy told me. He showed me the front of the building one day, and he says, "See that entrance?" He says, "There's rocket scientists walk through that door every day," and that is true. But they'll tell you they can do it. They've seen it, been everywhere, done everything. But you got to really sit down and pick their brain and just ask a few simple questions to see, hey, yeah, this This guy seems like he's willing to learn. He's got the enthusiasm. But a lot of times what we're seeing is they will come in and they will tell you that they can do a lot of things, but when it comes to perform, it's a total different situation in the field than having a controlled area, like you said, production to greenfield construction.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people just can't make that transition, and that's what we're seeing.
I find it more benefit for us is bring in a guy, bring him in as like a helper or something like that, and put him with one of our lead guys and teach him how to weld.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a guy, matter of fact, we talked about him earlier, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Won't call any names, but he came in, didn't know a bit about welding. And he worked with Jason and a couple more of our lead guys and got him up to speed and was ready to take the test. And he has been a phenomenal employee for us in a short period of time with the right training and put him with the right people.
Experiential learning is hard to beat, and that honestly that kind of goes from any industry that you're in. You learn, more people learn by doing than they do by reading a test or taking a test or reading a book or whatever.
Most of you real highly skilled level people, whether it be on the up on the erection side or construction side or even in the shop, they're highly skilled. They're working somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they just hard to find.
Yeah.
And when you got people like Jason and then 4 or 5 more of those guys in our shop, a lot of them is they hard to replace, and they know that, and we know that.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things.
The apprentice program seems to be fading away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and also too, what's coming back is the NECCER program.
What is that?
And that is a certified program that you take riggers, millwrights, welders, and you have so many hours that you have to train these guys, and you hold classes in-house. It's kind of like apprenticeship to get it back.
Okay.
So that's coming back around. Several years ago, it was heavy in the industry, and it kind of faded away. But now it gives a young person getting into this that wants to learn this, it teaches them the skills of the trade. And plus, it gives you an upper hand. If you got the NECCER certification, that's more money because you've already been through this.
Gotcha.
So,
Yep.
So, it's coming back because everybody that's in construction has seen the employee side and the craftsmanship, and it's been like a wave, up and down, and it's getting worse. But with this coming back, I think we can turn it around, especially with the kids. You don't have to know a lot, but if you got the enthusiasm and the will to learn, a lot of people will spend a lot of time with you to show you how to do this work.
What made you're of the three of you, you've been at Crowder the longest, or in the construction industry the longest. What made you want to get into it?
Well, I started out working on a farm.
Okay.
And it's a soybean farm. And my uncle told me I broke one of the combines. So I told him, we're going to have to get a part. He said, no, we fix stuff around here. So that's where I learned how to weld. And it kind of got me interested on how to fix stuff and weld stuff. And I just carried on through. And whenever I took welding, I got into it, started working shutdown, started running up and down the roads. And I knew right then, I started a family young. And I says, well, I don't want to be on the road all the time. So I started learning different things. And when people, back then, that's when the Fleur Daniels and all the old craft guys were still around, and Shaw, and, they would take you and they would show you stuff. As long as you didn't waste their time, they would teach you the tricks of the trade. And I was very blessed to be surrounded by these guys. And I took that knowledge and I started learning how to do duct work, move equipment, pipe fit. I said, listen, I don't care if it's sweeping floors. I got mouths to feed, I got babies to raise, whatever it takes, I need to draw a paycheck.
Right.
And that's how I got to where I am today, by somebody just opening the door for me and helping me out.
Jason, as a fabricator, that's something that you don't really see anymore. You see a lot of welders, but you don't see many fabricators anymore. I guess let's talk about your. How did you get to become a fabricator?
Um, going in line with what Barry said. So when I started with Crowder, I didn't know anything. I was the week before I started, I was painting houses, and like I said, I was only 18.
Yeah.
So I started, and fortunately,
How long you been with Crowder now? 40 years?
feels
Starting
like
at 18.
Feels like it.
so. Fortunately for me, the shop offers. There's positive and I don't even want to say positive and negative. There's different aspects to the shop and the field. One of the positives for working in the shop is you still get exposed to the same type of thing, but instead of having to take advantage or needing a process like what Barry was explaining with, I instead of signing up for classes and things like that, I was fortunate enough to be around some excellent people, and I was able to draw a lot of this knowledge and learn a lot of these things through practical application and hands-on. And I would sacrifice my break times, my lunch, if asked one guy about this or that when it come to welding, and then I'd try it, whenever I could. There were times they would work the weekends. No, we don't need a helper this weekend. Can I come in anyway? I just live right down the road and, just weld in the back corner or try to weld
Right.
while you guys are working. But so I learned just about, I ain't going to say everything, but I learned a lot about pipe and how to weld it, how to fit it, just doing takeout, learning systems. And then there was a big shift in the industry because of the 2008 housing market crash. And fortunately, Crowder's got some really good people, and Crowder just put their head down and pushed right through there and came out the other side pretty much stronger than ever, and moved into a new facility, and we continued the pipe, but we also started with a lot. That's when we really got heavy into the structural, a lot of, in our steel work. And
So was it mostly pipe before? Okay. Where was the old shop at? I don't remember that.
it's at right there, John Dodd New Cut, where they right there is the building still there. I think it's like
It used to be the RJR Mechanical.
I think
wasn't it?
yeah,
RJ?
it's
Yeah.
like I think now there's some kind of trucking company or something maybe there a little bit.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The Pig Out restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right there.
Okay. Interesting.
And oh yeah, and we grew exponentially while we were just there. I remember having to put up, we kept adding to that little small building that we were fabbing in. But yeah, so we were predominantly pipe, and then once we moved into the new facility, because of what happened in 2008, I feel like major pipe projects kind of started slowing down. So, like I said, Crowder's got good people. They saw a lot of that coming. They brought Ray Sturgill in, got a good partnership with him, starts running the shop, start getting all this steel work. And for me, it was bittersweet because I started over at square one. I work beside some other gentlemen that are fabricators that have been, I've only been a fabricator, a lead man for right at 4.5 years now, 5 years.
Gotcha.
But I don't regret not being there any sooner or acquiring or being given that job title by our shop superintendent and by our foreman, Lanny Irby, and people asking me to do that job because there was a lengthy process of preparation that I'm glad I had. And so once we moved into the new shop, like I said, we started to steel, and I had people like Lanny Irby, people like Todd Deaton, like Brian Wilson. I'm naming some, names of some gentlemen that I work with that these are top-notch minds when it comes to figuring out problems and knowing what they're looking at for this job. And I work with them, and basically just like I did with pipe, where I started as a helper, and I just ground on stuff and just cut things, and then moved on to how do you fit this, and then how learning to weld. I did the same thing as a fabricator. These gentlemen took me under their wing, and they're like, let me show you how to do handrail. Let me show you how to do the handrail formula, how to take out for handrail. And then let's work you up to some beams. Let's move on to let's see if you know how to fit some duct work, work
Right.
with you on that. And then it's an evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I also run the field too a little bit, like Barry was saying, and I welded alongside Barry before
Right.
in some binds, and so we've been out there, you know.
Yeah.
And I run the road for about 6 years. And that was one year I spent, I think, a total of, I got an honorable mention. I think I spent like a total of 8 months out of the year out of the shop, even though I worked for the shop.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if you want to take and acquire knowledge, you need that time along those people who have that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to learn how to put that knowledge to use the quickest way you can, you know, jump in the fire.
Right.
Because that's what the field is. The field is the fire.
Yeah.
Okay. We put out fires. The field calls us and says, "Hey, we need this. We need it like tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
And that's when people, like the guys I was mentioning, put their heads together and figure out how to solve that problem.
Right.
You know, but the field's still the guys that were out there finding that problem, and then they're the ones that's got to take what we have the ability to fabricate and use it to fix that problem.
Well, kind of staying on the fabricator mindset, you know, I mentioned earlier about you've got trigger pullers. Really, that's what the schools are putting out. They're teaching you to TIG, stick, and MIG, and they're sending you out. But a fabricator is created.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that is a person has to have someone who's willing to, or a group of people, I should say, to take them and create them, turn them into a fabricator. I mean, you're not going to learn to step brake or, you know, produce a tank head or any of that highly complicated pieces from the tech school. No. Someone has to teach you how to do that. Right? The apprenticeship program, in my opinion, I see this because this is my livelihood too. If I don't have welders and fabricators and pipe fitters, I don't have a business. I just feel like we as a society have to make a point to say, okay, we want to talk about we don't have the young kids coming in that can work. Well, here's the fact of the matter is their daddies probably aren't teaching them. Right. So at some point in time, we as a society, as a group of men have to say, all right, we're going to have to teach these boys or we're not going to have anybody to build anything soon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and all too often I hear, well, people complaining about the young kids. I'm like, I just want to say, well, are you trying to teach them anything?
Exactly. And that's where it all starts. You have got to be the person or the man. It don't matter if it's your son, your nephew, or a neighbor's kid. If he comes up to you and asks questions about something, spend some time with him.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, explain why you're doing what you're doing. Because a lot of times you'll see a lot of people in the store or out when you and your wife and kids are out, and you can see kids asking questions, and what do? They shrug them off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they can't learn unless you tell them.
That is so true.
Yeah. I don't know. Google it.
Exactly. Well, Google's not going to teach me but so much.
No.
Google will show you. They'll show you, but then they're like, I see it. I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we kind of jump into some projects and stuff, Tommy, I want to put a bug in your ear and ask you, I know you come from a heavy manufacturing experience. What was making the transition from manufacturing to the fab shop when you first come to Crowder? How was that?
Well, I was with my former employer 35 years.
Yeah.
And I was around steel all my life. I bought piping, tubing to make bearings with.
Right.
And done and processed it through to make what we made. Know a little bit about some geometry stuff in steel and how it was treated and hardened and how it how it moves when it's heated and cold and stuff like that. So I was kind of familiar with a lot of steel, and I've done a lot of buying myself. But I was approached by which is my boss now, the fab shop manager, Ray Sturgill. He just looked at me one day and said, I want you to come work for me. And I said, yeah, right. 35 years in the job. I mean, it's going
to up and leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I thought it was just like, throwing stuff because I've been approached before, but it wasn't the right thing. And he approached me again a few months later. He said, I'm serious. I want you to come work for me. He said, my purchasing manager is going to be retiring, and I need somebody in there that I can trust and know what's going on and change a few things. And that kind of hit me pretty good, you know, and I started thinking about it. And I went in for an interview with him and his boss, and we talked, and I was just nervous because I've never had but one job all my life, you know. And the next day, well, let me back up. I asked, it was based on one question because I know how, you know, my business was, or my company was very sturdy, you know, and the metrics was climbing. And I looked at him and I said, I don't want to know what do you see this shop being in 7 years? Where do you see this shop in 7 years? And I need an honest answer from you. And he showed me some metrics, where it was when they started. And he said, I expect it to be even better than that. And he showed me some more metrics. And I told him I'd call him the next day and let him know something. And I went home and talked to my wife about it and decided to make the move. And so I called him and told him, when does he want me to start? He said, well, Monday would be fine.
That'd be good with me, wouldn't it?
But I didn't want to walk out on my former employer. And I said, you want me to work notice? He said, well, that's up to you, you know. It doesn't matter to us if you do it or you don't, because, you know, you can come in 2 weeks from now or a week from now. But I called them, talked to them, and we made Monday work. And I was nervous at first because when I walked through that shop and seen the craftsmanship and the knowledge these guys had, the building stuff out of steel. I've been building bearings all my life, different sizes, big earth mover bearings, little spindle bearings, you know, everything. And it was amazing to watch them build something out of a sheet of metal. You know?
Exactly.
And then Ray said, I want you to take a trip to one of our job sites. I want you to see this structure that they've built out of what we made in this shop. And I went and seen that. And it was just, I remember that steel coming in as big pieces. And they cutting it up in little bitty pieces. They send it out to the field, and they put it up, and it goes together like a glove. It bolts right up. And I'm thinking, man, that is awesome. But now that I've been there like 10 years, it just getting settled in. I really appreciate their knowledge, and I appreciate Crowder for giving me the opportunity to do this. And I know that there's a long future ahead for this company and for this fabrication shop. And I'm just glad and honored to be a part of it, man.
Right. I think there's a lot to be said about the procurement side of our business. It takes a lot to get that material in, a lot of hands involved, and a lot of that goes unnoticed. And I'm gonna say that is the final product gets all the glory, but there's a lot of work that goes into getting all that material acquired, quoted, brought in, accounted for.
I mean,
before a welder ever touches it.
That's right.
Right. How was navigating the supply chain issues during COVID for y'all?
We had a little problem on a certain. Well, the lead times went up.
Yeah, absolutely. Pricing, everything.
Pricing did go up. But there was a couple of items and a couple of things that they used and we had to have that we probably couldn't get our hands on for 2 or 3 months, and it affected, especially price wise, a lot, and a lot of the lead time. The trucking industry, you know, they just tripled their prices of logistics. And,
the downstream effect of that, and it's continuing now with inflation.
Right.
People, especially the consumer, doesn't understand that if a buyer for a manufacturer, cost of goods is increasing 2 or 3 times, and lead times are going up, the downstream effect of that is significant. I think our society doesn't fully grasp what all goes into, you know, take the schools, for example. Building a new school, people just assume their kids just get to go in there and sit down and get taught.
Right.
And there was a lot of work, a lot of hands, and a lot of people that was involved to get those walls put up.
Exactly. A lot of coordination.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
the effects, you mentioned the effects of what was it, COVID, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly to give you how the ripple effect of that. When I first got to Crowder, and I'd go buy a bunch of steel or go buy anything, well, especially steel, the prices would be on their quote price good for 45 days, 60 days, 90 days, or whatever. Then as COVID came in and left out, you noticed that price is only good for 30 days. Then it got to 2 weeks. One of our vendors, while it's not that way now, or one of our suppliers, prices got good for the next couple of hours.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well,
It
we
went from
battled
90,
that too.
90 days
Yeah.
to a couple of hours. So when we send out an RFQ for a nested summary of steel, we'll get the pricing back, and it may have prices good till noon. But I mean, it's not quite that bad now. Most of them's like
It's still
a
not
week.
great.
Yeah, it's not great.
You're lucky to get a week.
Yeah, 3 to 5 days. Some of it.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yep.
seldom it's 2 weeks.
How does that, from estimating this job, how can you possibly, especially with the scope of work that you all are involved in, get a list of materials and get a quote sent downstream to the end user and be able to stand behind that?
Well, a lot of things you have to clarify this, okay, especially to the client itself. This is the issue we're having. The clarification is I've allotted so much for this, and this is what I'm seeing. The trend is this price is changing weekly, daily, hourly, however it changes. But what we do is clarify this is what we're dealing with. We've allotted this amount of money for this, and this, and we can't guarantee this. So if it goes over that, we'll have to sit down. We'll have to negotiate a price to move forward with a path forward on this project. One of the biggest impacts that I saw on my end was like on the dam structures and stuff, the gearboxes, the drives. Some of these gates have special type bronze, brass sleeves. Some of this lead time was over a year, and a lot of the gearboxes was out, a year, 2 years. So that really put a halt on a lot of projects, and we had to step back and look at other ways to get these boxes fixed, like rebuild or trying to find parts that they had stored somewhere to rebuild these boxes, because the brass was what the sleeves were that all the main components, were lubricated with, and the wire factor on this, and you just couldn't get it. So there was a lot of scavenger hunts to look for these parts and pieces, but it's getting better.
Yeah.
It's getting better.
Are there any memorable, you don't have to name names or anything like that, but there's got to be some very memorable jobs that y'all have worked on over the years? Maybe some big problems that you had to overcome, or even maybe just like a home runs that, y'all hit, but.
Yeah, one of the ones that really stand out for me is the smallest one was, and you know this area well, it's down in Packlet where the horse is.
Mm-hmm.
I was over that project.
Okay, yeah.
Put in a hydro system, and I think it powers a 1.5 megawatt. It powers about 3,000 homes in the Packlet area.
Mm-hmm.
But that job, it meant it was a small job, but just a community. Just they would come out every day and just, hey, what are y'all doing? And very interested in what we're doing. And all the gate mechanisms that we had, we took them apart, and the town of Packlet was going to put them as a memorabilia downtown. But somebody come in one night and stole every bit of it.
No way.
Yeah.
For scrap?
For scrap, yeah. And, a lot of people, we was telling them the story of how we was going to take the existing gates and all the drivetrains and make them a statue downtown. And, man, they were so excited. So whenever that got stolen, it was really heartbreak for a lot of people.
I bet so, yeah.
But, yeah, we got to do that job in Packlet, and also we did the same at Lockhart.
Okay.
So
yeah,
did
they keep their parts and make something out of it, like a museum or something?
Well, actually, the old mill at Lockhart, they kept the stack up and put a plaque in the stack, and and talked about the historical mill, and now there's a hydro that produces power for 3,000 plus homes, you know. So it's the small town. You know, a lot of people look at the big projects, and they do mean something. Don't get me wrong; they mean a lot. Anything in hydro and history means a lot to me. But when you come into a small community and you see the look on people's faces, and you know what you're doing and helping their town, that really sticks in my head more than the bigger scale projects. You know, because you're seeing ground zero of what you're doing to change the lives of people.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Barry, did we do that bridge down in Lockhart too?
Yes, sir. Heavy Civil Division also did the new bridge over the Lockhart River. So.
Yeah, I didn't know we hadn't mentioned the heavy civil division.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
that fascinates me. I just want to say that of all the different types of construction, bridge construction has got to be one of the most fascinating.
I'm telling you, man.
I would love to sit down and just talk to somebody that builds bridges.
That would be Bill and Otis. They're the bridge guys.
Yeah.
You know. So, but yeah, I mean, even at the old Hurt Celanese plant, that bridge, Crowder actually built that bridge. He just finished it last year.
I think so. I heard
Last
something
year.
like that, yeah.
So
God, the engineering that has to be involved in
Yeah.
that, and the I don't know. It blows my mind how half a bridge would be there, and then the other half would just
yeah,
it just ends up together.
it's like a Lego
know,
set. Yeah,
Yeah, especially a bridge over water.
yeah.
Man, yeah, that's awesome.
There's some crazy stuff.
Yeah. What about you, Jason? You've been involved in anything that just really that you thought was really neat or challenging?
Yeah. I worked a little job one time, and it taught me a lot already, and I was still pretty young too, so we were still at our old shop. And so we had a little bit of a slowdown. I mean, it's construction. It's the way it goes. You're up, you're down. We had a little bit of a slowdown, and it really got down to just me and the guy that was running the shop at the time. The shop manager was a guy named Roger Clark. And so it was just me and him working in there. We had a couple of guys that were still coming and going out in the field, and they got a job working, and I mentioned this at lunch, but it was a really memorable job because it taught me 2 or 3 things. But we got a job at the Dunlop golf ball factory. It was, I think it was all the way down in Clemson, I believe. And so, you know, Roger was really cool. He was a really cool guy. I learned a lot of welding, but I also learned a lot of, I guess, a lot about being willing to work. Like, it was nice to have somebody that was willing to work with you. So he was like, he knew I was young. I think my daughter was only like 2 years older at the time, and so he didn't mind. I rode with him every day. You know, he'd pick me up, we'd ride down. He'd buy me a biscuit in the morning. I mean, it was like, you know, it was like your work dad or something.
Yeah.
But so we're working at this gun. Okay, so 2 things. One, it was really cool because I used to love to watch how it's made when it very, very first started. And I was like, I can't believe I'm actually working somewhere where I'm seeing the steps of how this average, you know, golf ball that everybody sees is actually being produced. And it was really cool because, like, normally nobody else is going to see that. You're not going to know what goes inside each stage that it happens in. You're not going to see that they've got these driving ranges, 4 of them side by side with these robotic arms, or they're not robotic, but it was a swing arm, and they would hit so many of these balls. And like, they didn't mind letting you know about all that and everything. And so what we did for them was totally out of like the scope of what you would think when you're like, so we fabricated a stand that had blowers on it, and these blower motors were for UV lights. So up until this point, they had, each ball was sprayed with a clear coat, and it would go through a dryer on this little thing that they called, because it looked like a crow's foot, and it would go through this dryer. It would come out the other side. It would drop off onto another conveyor. They would roll it over, and they would stamp whatever manufacturer's name needed to be on it. If it was Dunlop, if it was, you know, Titleist or Slazenger, but anyway,
They was making them all. Then
so they'd stamp it on there, and they'd go around, And once they stamped it, it would drop it, it would go into another set of crow's foot, and then it would go through another dryer, and that dried. And so these UV lights replaced 30 minutes in each one of those with less than 30 seconds.
Wow.
And it was a special ink, and they stamped it. And so we were there, and it was like I got to see 6 or 8 golf balls get melted by only being in front of a light for 15 seconds longer than they should have been.
Oh, wow.
When they first set it up, they rolled it around, it rolled back up, and it was like just melted.
Yeah.
I was like, man, you want to get your hand under there.
Did you take some of the guys, a couple dozen while you was...
Now, believe it or not, and I can tell y'all this when I get to the end of the story, you'll know why. But believe it or not, they had huge pallets of cardboard boxes. I mean, waist high, a whole pallet.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Jimmy Hill?
Yeah, I do.
Buckets full of them, dude. You could take as many as you want. They were like, those are just
but when you hit
Those
them,
are they were rejects.
yeah, you never know what's going to happen, right? But what this job taught me was we went in, we took something that they didn't have before, we fabbed what we needed to make up, we installed it, and we stayed there because it was supposed to be a 2-week shutdown. Obviously, there were some tweaks. Everything's always supposed to be a 2-week shutdown.
Oh yeah, 2 weeks.
And we went in, but we stayed till we needed to. We got everything tweaked out, and everything worked good and all, and some of us stayed behind a little bit longer. And then 8 months after that, they shut that plant down, and they took everything in that plant and they shipped it somewhere else.
Wow.
And that's where, that stuff needed to go and to another facility, and that's where it was going to be made then. And that taught me a lot because I was really proud of everything that I'd helped do for that, but then to see it get sent somewhere else because of and I only assumed it was a bottom dollar issue.
Yeah.
Because,
Right. You know it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to see it get shipped somewhere else, I was like, man, later on working for Crowder, to work with some of these other companies that took on the same motto and mantra that Crowder has, like I said earlier, with Build America and proud of it. It just stuck out of my mind that of all these projects and everything you work on, it just really hurts to see some of the places I actually worked on with Jimmy Hill. I actually worked on the building that we moved to, our building right now. It belonged to Westinghouse.
Okay.
And they made electric motors and things like that there. And they would wind them and everything. And when they would make the winding, they would dip these motors in this hot wax and pull them out. And they were sterilized first with radiation and then dipped in. And they pull them out. And that keeps that way that motor is good for X amount of years because it's bacteria free. And nothing can grow inside of it. Nothing can contaminate it. And that's why if you get into, the larger electric motors, they've been done that way. And where they were dipping these things, we installed a new duct system. We used to, the old shop, we actually did like actual duct work. Like I did that. I worked at a couple of VA hospitals doing genuine just heat and air. And but yeah, to work in places. And then I think kind of the same thing happened with Westinghouse. It didn't just shut down, they moved
it.
Yeah.
Yep. It burns me up to talk about the exporting of our manufacturing. But what is worse than that is, and I seen this the other week, I will not say where, but there's a assembly plant who is probably more than likely getting tax breaks and benefits to assemble in America their product, and it's fabricated product. And I asked him, I said, y'all don't do any fabrication in-house, it's just straight assembly. So where all the hardware comes from China. So who's doing all the fab work? I'll go talk to them. They bring it all in, manufactured in China. So the manufactured pieces are made in China. The assembly hardware is coming from China. But they're putting it together and putting a assembled in America sticker on it and sending it out the door. That burns me up.
Well, a lot of our clients, they want domestic.
Right.
You don't bring anything else in this plant unless it's domestic.
Right. That's how it should be.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
That's right.
Yeah.
My boss told me day one, we buy only domestic.
Right.
I mean, there's some imports that we get when we can't get it domestically, but as long as it meets as far as requirements, DFARS, we good.
Mm-hmm.
But we buy domestic. We do domestic.
As it should be.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Agree.
What, we talked about your employee retention, but what really, there is reasons why Crowder is as old as they are as a company. What really sets Crowder apart from, say, your competitors?
What I think is the owners of the company, the founding fathers of the company, nothing was given to them on a silver platter. They were out in the field. They were pulling crane levers. They were hauling dirt. They were mixing concrete. They worked in the field. They didn't sit back in a glass tower and watch over everybody do the work.
Yeah.
They were out there with them doing the work.
They were the original two founders.
Yes.
The Crowders.
Right.
The
And
name's
even
still on the building.
still on the building. And even Bill and Otis, when they got out of college, they went out into the field. Their dads
Wow.
told them, says, no, you're not going to sit in the office.
Go to work.
You going to work.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
got to
that's-
understand the process.
Exactly. You got to
Gotta learn.
understand it. Exactly. You got to
Yeah.
know how it goes together, what it takes to get it to this point.
Yep.
What it takes to make something happen. And that's the only way you're going to learn. And I think we've got away from that over the years. And, education is great. Education is wonderful. But there's a lot of things on paper that look really good. Once you go out in the field and start putting it together, it don't work.
Exactly.
And you got to have that field experience. Go get your hands dirty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what I always told my kids, my grandkids: get you college education, but get you go learn a skill,
Right.
whether it's welding, mechanic work, electrical work. That way, you got something to fall back on.
Right. Right. How are y'all implementing safety strategies? I'm assuming y'all see where that man in that fab shop in Greenville
Yes.
got killed. Safety and complacency go hand in hand. I know that company, and guarantee you that was some complacency with employees that more than likely resulted in that.
Yeah, and Crowder is very safety conscious company. I mean, both these guys right here, they'll tell you, anybody you ask with Crowder, that's number one. When you come to work, we want you to go back home to your family just as good as you was when you got to work that morning. You know, there's nothing like, and you've been in this industry long enough to know, there's nothing like calling someone and saying, hey, your husband got hurt, or, we lost your husband today. And we've all been through it. We've seen it happen. And that's, you can't explain the feeling you got when you have to do that. I would not wish that on anybody.
Right.
For somebody to lose their partner or their soulmate or their husband and wife at a job site. So when you come to Crowder, that's the first thing they talk about. Safety's first. We're safety implemented. Always look at the job site. We want you to be in mind. If you see something, pull that stop work authority. Let's talk about this. If you don't feel safe about what you're doing, we need to sit down and make it to where everybody's safe and you feel comfortable coming to work and working on this project. Yeah, but it's and it's challenging with some of the skill we have now and what we've talked about to get these people in that mindset, because a lot of it, they're not doing it on purpose. They just don't know. They don't know the routine. They don't know how the flow of this work goes. And that's
Right.
what nobody's ever sat down and really showed them the way of this work. And that's why a lot of people struggle. And that's why we try to keep our mix to like 2-to-1, 2 experienced guys to 1 new guy. Sometimes it's hard to do, but that's the kind of ratio we kind of look at to keep it like that.
Yeah, I would just say that has to be a challenge with the inexperience getting in the way, maybe accidentally causing someone to get hurt.
Yeah.
Just not knowing any better, knowing not to. Also complacency. I'll tell you a story about me real quick. My first job was actually in a steel warehouse. My first real job. Worked with this old man who had been working there his whole life. Literally the only job this man had has been getting steel off a truck and putting it in the racks. Overhead crane off the truck into the racks. Well, we got a bundle of, it was like 1/8" 4x10s. He says, man, we got to put all, I was complaining, so we're going to put all that up piece by piece, because in my training, plate grab one piece, plate grab one piece. He said, no, we ain't going to do that. We're going to do it all right now. Whenever there, he got a C-clamp, put it on one end and put, I don't know, 10 sheets probably in that plate grab. Picked it up. And this time we did not have a pendant that was cordless, it was on a cord, or,
Yeah.
He's walking behind it and he's holding one in, and some of the middle sheets came out. This is my first week. And then hit him right on the top of his feet and cut the top of one of his, right above the toes. I mean, steel toes wasn't going to help him. It was above that, like top of the foot. Gone. Cut it right off. Complacency.
Wow.
I've been doing this my whole life, boy. Just watch. I'll teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
But he was teaching me wrong. You got,
You
cost
can
him
do
his
it
foot.
999 times, but guess what? That 100
time.
times going to get you every time.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I'll never forget that day. That was interesting. Yep. Mr. Tommy, you've stepped into a new role, somewhat. Still procuring and overseeing all that, but out looking for new business
Yep.
in a very competitive environment.
Yes, it is.
What are you looking for? What kind of customers are you out looking for? Maybe they're listening right now.
Well, it's anybody that needs anything fabricated, something made,
Yeah.
whether it's a conveyor or a housing or a walkway, a catwalk, a structural building. Like I say, we can fab it and they can put it up, But I think what sets Crowder's fabrication shop apart from a lot of them, from what I've heard from clients, I'm not just saying what I think, I'm hearing this from clients, is the relationship that Crowder has with their clients. The partnership. It's just like, hey, when one hurts, the other hurts, And when they need something, we try our best to step in there and do what we can for them. I've had a couple of clients tell me that they've never seen a fab shop go the extra mile to try to meet the needs of some of their customers or some of their clients. They've told me that personally. Somebody might call on a Monday and say, hey, we got an outage. We need blah, blah, blah tomorrow, and it be in Ohio. Well, my manager gets off the phone, gets a couple of us together and say, hey, how can we make this happen? What will it take to make it happen? Get the material in there, get it cut. We'll send our driver to Ohio just to deliver them the next day, if we had to. Just to meet a need, because people, they got expectations and promises too, and so do we.
That's right.
So we try to make them better so we can be better. So I'm up and down the roads and back and forth and on the phone and emails when I'm not doing some shop duties, but just any kind of structural piece they need, we the man to go to.
I get it.
We the shop.
I like it. Yeah. I like how over the years, we've worked together a lot.
Yeah, we have.
And we've had this conversation about the supplier and the end user dynamic. It's like, I have to be my best so you can be your best.
That's right.
And I generally believe, and I've seen it, that Crowder will do what has to be done to be their best so that your clients can be the best they can be.
That's exactly right. That's what I live by.
Yeah.
When one hurts, we all hurt.
That's fact.
If I see one of my clients hurting, I'm hurting. If I see somebody that's in need, I want to reach out to them, whether they're my client or customer or not. If they need us, hey, I'm here for you. I just don't talk it. We walk it, and I'll back it up 100%.
I like it. I like it a lot. Well, gentlemen, it has been an honor to talk with you. I've enjoyed it.
Yes, sir.
Y'all we can keep going if y'all want to. You got anything you want to talk about? Or?
We
That's
talk
up to
about
y'all.
fishing if you want.
Yeah.
All right, how about that fishing now?
Yeah.
Go get the wheelbarrow, son.
That's
Go get the wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
This is heavy. This is heavy.
I'll tell you,
Yeah.
man, that was something else.
Yeah. I do got a question though before I kind of dive off. Where do you see construction? Us as unbiased, everybody probably gonna have a different opinion. The construction fabrication industry in 10 years, with all the technology that's coming, with all the workforce issues, where are we going?
Well, my opinion on that is, I mean, if you look at the way technology is going now, I hope I never see this, but you going in stores now that's unattended, that's vending machines, that's robots, and you go to the automotive side of the industry and look at all the robotics that are installed in the manufacturers. I mean, if we don't turn this around and get people in there and teach them and show them how to do this work, it's gonna head that way too. I mean, it's I don't want to see it because I enjoy what I do. I enjoy seeing things being built by people.
Right.
But we can't take this knowledge with us. We got to give it to somebody.
That program you were talking about earlier,
At
is that
NECCR.
that's put on by the construction company? So like Crowder would put that on. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, well, it's like it's a group of people that's established this, but they take all the literature and stuff and all the training work and stuff and give it to these companies, and then you got instructors in house that'll take and teach these programs.
So if a young man was listening to this right now, and they wanted to get involved in that, where would they go? How do they find that?
First of all, you find a company that sponsors that.
Okay, gotcha.
Like the Crowders or some
Whoever.
other competitors we have.
Yep.
And then you tell them once you hire in, you got a 90-day period. Most people's got 60, 90-day grace period, to make sure that you're really going to stay with the company. Then you ask questions and you get the literature on it and you sign up for it. And then it might be a Saturday a month or maybe a Friday and Saturday a month. But you start that program and you don't stop until the end result. And if you're a pipe fitter, you might have to do a run a pipe or a bypass system or sweat copper, Same thing with concrete, structural steel, electrical.
Whatever the trade is.
Whatever the trade is, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the first I've heard of that initiative. So I'm going to look into that. But Crowder is a sponsor of that.
Yes.
Yes.
They
okay.
are.
Gotcha. What about you as a fabricator? Where do you see, man, I know there's a lot of, a robot's never going to replace a fabricator. So you're safe. You're good. But-
You think that,
Yeah,
but
you
there's
think
there's several pieces of machinery out there that a lot of fab shops, beam lines.
Yeah, a lot of
And-
automation stuff. Yeah, I get that all the time. And hey, let us sell you this machine. It can do 20 holes by itself in 30 seconds. But
Yeah,
but we're not in a production line of running beams through drilling
Right.
holes
Cookie-
every day.
Cookie cutter type situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just laying out holes and
It
drilling.
really is,
Yeah.
but yeah, for man, because like I said, I mean, really, you could say it's probably taken me 10 years to get to this, where I'm at. So you would have to have someone in their, early 20s getting really serious about it right now and starting into it to get to where I think programs like what Barry's talking about are very, very important. You got to have people, companies that are willing to put that extra into people who want to be a part of that. I think it is scary how many people. You're correct. We do have a very low, in my opinion, a pretty low turnover for
Your industry.
for our industry at the shop and Crowder in general. but you also have a very low interest, I think, in the field. It very is. It's a very low interest, and I don't know if that is a lack of interest in skilled labor or if it's a compounded issue now, because now we're faced with people who might not be interested in that particular skilled trade, and then you have other people that are starting to weigh out starting salaries on, do I want to do, work with my hands by the sweat of my brow like I should for X amount of money, or do I want to do I'm not speaking of office work. I'm just talking about,
No, absolutely.
money in general.
Yep.
Positions of all kinds. And you just have a lack of people that it's hard to look somebody in the eye, a young man, you're like, you're going to sweat every day. You're going to be sore. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to do stuff wrong, and you're going to be got on to for it. If you don't sugarcoat everything, it's like I'm telling you right now, you're not going to figure everything out on your own the first time. And if you mess enough stuff up, somebody's going to get upset.
That's right.
Yeah.
But being willing to use that, to internalize that, and it's a little bit scary, wondering whether or not we're raising, like you said, a sturdy enough generation. With what Barry was talking about, what you were talking about earlier, about what makes Crowder good and everything, and being worried about the next 10 years for fabricators and industrial work and what we do for a living. The reason the United States, the reason America is America, and the reason it's good is because the people that founded this country did what we were talking about.
Amen.
They didn't just, some of the people that signed that declaration weren't just highly educated people that knew how to put together and run a country. They were people who fought other people. They literally fought.
That's right. Yeah. The majority of the signers were not educated at all.
Right.
They were men who wanted change and was willing to work and sacrifice for that change.
And anything it took to make that change.
That's right.
So sometimes when you look at where's an industry headed, what can an industry do, it's like we mentioned with safety and like Crowder. Crowder's really good at safety.
Yep.
But you have to be the kind of person that's also going to take that safety seriously. Like the gentleman that you mentioned.
Yep.
And
that's right.
it's the same thing. If you really, really want to make something of yourself, there are places out there like Crowder and others that are going to put forth the effort to help you reach that goal, but you got to be willing to do it yourself.
Right. I think a lot of people in our society can't see past what they're an hour in front of them to see 20 years down the road. All they see is right here, right now. Their lack of ability to invest in themselves, to get somewhere later in life is just, if anything, that's in my opinion, our biggest fault for society right now is we have developed an instant society where they want instant gratification right now.
Well, it's different when people said, I want to take time to find myself, and they were doing that between the age of 17 and 21. You can't take the time to find yourself until you're 32 years old.
That's right.
There's not going to be much of you left by the time you figure it out.
Yep. A man and woman without purpose is a dangerous thing.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, it's a dangerous thing.
But I think the industry, personally, with technology and the way things are going, if you use it hand in hand with the people who want to solve problems, because you're always going to need problem solvers. I mean, obviously, and with the way our region is just blowing up, really, in the next 10 years, somebody's going to make a lot of money, and somebody's going to do a really good job at doing a lot of work. It's just whether or not they want to be a part of that.
Right. Well, guys, I enjoyed it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Thank y'all for doing this and for being here. And,
No problem.
And I think the upstate is very fortunate to have individuals like yourselves and companies like Crowder to help build parts that keep this country going. So appreciate you, and thank y'all for doing this.
God bless America.
Thank you.
Sir, that's right.
Sir.
Appreciate it.